All right, so cool. So thank you everyone for joining us. Tonight, I am talking to the great Robert Penner. How are you, sir?
Hey, Pablo, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing excellent. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, I'm Robert Penner, a Canadian man who lives in Brooklyn but is currently in a Canadian camper trailer uh, in the wild north of my parents' property. Um,
Is it really a trailer?
yeah, seriously, this is my quarantine bunker, and I just liked it so much I stayed.
How long have you been there?
5 weeks now, so I had to do like 14 days of very strict. Like I couldn't go inside the house, and I would kind of rap at the window for them to bring me out some dinner, and I'd eat out on the deck.
Wait a minute. You actually did the 14 days?
I did, even though like we are like 10 miles outside of a small town called Quesnel in British Columbia, and yeah, there's definitely no sirens around here. We're way on the boom.
Yeah, sorry.
It's
New
fine.
York City,
I miss it already.
noise pollution every day.
I mean, I was living in Brooklyn, you know, until 5 weeks ago, and I like throughout the like March, April kind of curve cresting of all the COVID stuff, like
Hmm.
because I'm a couple blocks from the hospital, I would just hear sirens all day long. So,
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, but so that's like that kind of convinced me that there was something real, even though my dad doesn't believe it's anything to worry about.
Wait. Today he doesn't believe in anything?
Well, he's very skeptical about like
Hmm.
the agenda behind the mask wearing, and I mean, like I'm up in northern BC, and there's just like hardly anyone who has ever had COVID up here. So,
Right, right.
but he has like his own land, like he has 160 acres with like gravel pits and a peat bog and forest and stuff, and so there's just like lots of room to social distance and um yeah. So
So
I
if you were in New York for so long,
mm,
what made you go up 5 weeks ago?
yeah, I wanted to get to Canada a little bit earlier to enjoy more of the summer because like I mean Canada gets pretty cold and snowy and stuff, but the summers are amazing, and I
Mhm.
just love like swimming in rivers and hiking and stuff like that, water skiing. But uh, the the border was kind of closed to non-essential travel, and so I
Right.
was just waiting to hear like when can I um, have a chance of like explaining to the border guard like yeah I have a reason, I have a urgent or valid reason, and so eventually they kind of let so-called family reunification kind of become a very real reason. And friends told me, yeah, you can come. You just need to like stay for longer than 2 weeks because if you come for two weeks and then it's like the border guard is like saying, well, you're just going to live in a cave for 2 weeks, then go back to New York. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So yeah, I'm here for 5 weeks, and I might be here for another month or so. Maybe just after the election, just in case. Right?
Things could get crazy.
But I'm
Did you?
very thankful that I'm able to like work remotely. So I'm a programmer on web software, like do JavaScript and stuff like that. And I've been working on uh, a it's like a digital map for the New York subway system.
Huh.
So our client is the MTA agency, and yeah, 15 months, and we actually are about to launch it next week finally. And so it's kind of like Google Map for the subway with like a really streamlined interface, and um, it involves lots of like mathematical equations and curves to like visualize all these colors of subway lines going, and you can like filter by, so you can look into the future, like tonight or the weekend, like what the train patterns look like, and where is it one way, and where is it skipping
When it's
stations.
express and local.
Yeah, because I mean, moving to New York, that was such a mind bender and learning curve. It's like I just it took so many times for me to like not realize I was on an express train. Like I would be on the
Right,
A,
right.
and I wanted to get to Lafayette, which is a C station near Fort Greene Park, and I wouldn't realize that I was on an Express A train, and they would just kind of keep going past and past and past, and would dump me at Nostrand. And then I'm like, oh, and I couldn't even like switch to the other side of the subway for free there. So I'd like go the
Oh,
street
it's
and
one of those stops.
yeah, and pay to get back in. And
Ugh,
I mean, like years later, I realized that I could just stay on the train and go even further away from my intended destination,
and switch over.
switch over for free, then come back. So it's
The subway system here, I always say, is the best in the world, but it's also terrible.
well, I learned that it used to be three different companies.
Correct.
Yeah, and so you'd have three different tickets, or three different tokens and whatever, and so that's why the transfers between different lines can be so awkward and long tunnels and stuff.
Yeah, I heard that some of the lines actually had to be altered because different companies had different, or maybe they never altered them. But the reason that there's different type of style trains on some of the lines is because they have different fittings. Um,
Yeah, they're
but
like different widths. Some of the cars are just skinnier.
exactly, exactly. All I want to know though is, will this app or the website, what is it? Is it an app?
It's a web page that's mobile optimized.
Will it be able to tell you real time when trains are coming?
Yes.
Okay, if that's true, then it is going to be amazing, and I will use it all the time because God, how many times have you gone down there and it's, oh, a train is coming, and then it takes 20 minutes?
Yeah. So
Are you going to be
what?
using that incorrect data?
Yeah, I was going to say we're just hooked up to the MTA data. So
Uh,
yeah. So like you can be at the station and it's the
yeah.
train's like 2 minutes away for 20 minutes.
So when you moved to New York, are you originally from Canada then?
Yeah. Yeah. I was born in Winnipeg, and then my family moved out to British Columbia, um, way out west, to Quesnel, the gold pan city. There's like a big gold rush history here. When I was 3 years old, we moved here. My dad bought 160 acres of land with a peat bog on it, and kind of made a homestead of sorts.
So did you grow up on that 160-acre plot of land?
Yeah, like I grew up like we had motorbikes, like dirt bikes, and my dad has these like loaders and dump trucks and stuff. And I really was not into the hydraulic, greasy world of heavy machinery, but I, you know, it rounded me off. I was like a bookworm, piano nerd as well, piano, math, and
Mhm.
books, and I was forced to encounter the physical world of dirt and like pick weeds out of manure piles and fix sticks out of peat moss piles and I don't know, sort of like a farm slash mine. Technically, it's a mine. I grew up on a
They
mine.
put you to work.
Yeah, like it was not so bad once they started paying me.
Slavery ends once you turn 18, right?
Yep.
So what kind of things, like, did you ever go hunting then? If you really weren't into all that outdoor stuff?
I actually kind of wanted to go hunting, but my dad wasn't into
Oh,
recreational hunting. Technically, what I mean, because like I remember around grade seven. Sorry, up here we say grade seven instead of seventh grade. Just one of those
oh,
things.
okay. Grade
So
7.
in seventh grade, we didn't, we didn't even have middle schools back then, but the other boys in the class were talking about going hunting with their dads, and I'm like, Dad, I want to go hunting with you. Like I just want to
Right.
like have a hunting story to tell my friends. The thing is, like, my dad, like he likes guns and stuff, but it's just out of necessity because there's animals that just come on our property, and he like shoots a beaver or two or three because they're like building a dam to recreate an ancient lake that's going to flood his peat bog and you know
Mm,
take away his kind of mother load of dirt. And so or black bears will be on the property, shoots them, stuff like that. So I did do some like minor target practice with a 22 in the gravel
so
pit on our property.
I do remember the when you were doing stand up,
Yeah.
which I assume you're not doing it anymore during COVID, uh,
Uh,
unfortunately. I do remember that joke about the bear.
yeah. So,
Was that an actual true story?
right. So, um, yeah. Because my bit is on it's on YouTube, and I don't want to spoil it in case like 0.1% chance someone's going to check it out and be entertained. But yeah, it was based on a real um,
If,
thing.
if
Like,
somebody wanted to look it up, how would they find it?
okay, so well, I guess I have
Go to
two.
YouTube.
I have two YouTube channels. I have like Robert Penner Gotham would pull up. It would be like January 2020. And that's like a 6 minute set. And that's the show you and I did together. Um,
Everybody, listen. Go to YouTube. Type in Robert Penner Gotham. Watch it. It's funny stuff. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend.
I'm not, a big blowhard, but I do have to say that Pablo and I both killed it at Gotham
It
just before the COVID. So Google him on the YouTubes as well.
was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it was based on a real thing. Like my dad, you know, shot a black bear on our property, and I just sort of thought of a way to tell the story in an unexpected way.
Yeah, you were good at turning things. I don't know the correct terminology here, but you would have sample A, and everyone's expecting A, but
Mhm.
you would deliver B, and that was what you were really good at.
Oh, thanks.
So
Yep.
that Black Bear and the R. Kelly one. I don't know if that one's online or not.
That's not online, no.
Oh man, that killed. That killed me.
Yeah, thanks. That was one of my big goals is to, one, get into some more personal material about my growing up setting, and two, to um, to have a big misdirect with a big punch, and to really
Mhm.
like string people along and get them to believe, and suck them into something. And I was really inspired by like Norm Macdonald. I saw a couple months before that in Manhattan, and in the city, as they say. And yeah, he had some amazing, like sometimes you think he's done telling jokes for a little bit. He's going on about like talking about his mother,
Mhm.
how wonderful she is, for like 5 minutes, and that was all like a big misdirect to just like slap us across the face with some like callback that I don't know.
No, yeah, I mean comedy is hard and it's a skill and yeah, you have to practice at it and it feels amazing when you get it right.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But getting back to growing up in Canada, did you always want to move to the US?
Um, most of my life, I wanted to move to not the U.S. Um, well, yeah, I mean, I first visited New York just a couple months before 9/11, and it was, yeah, hot New York summer, and I was there for a technology conference, and it was just kind of smelly, and people are so like hard and unfriendly on Manhattan streets, and I was just like, cities are not for me, and how do people live here and everything. I came back a year later, and just to see the hole in the ground, um, in 2002. Actually, it was another technology conference, but I did go pay my respects, and uh, still like I can sort of tolerate New York a little bit, but it's kind of a cool place. Like I went on like this Seinfeld reality tour. I don't know if you heard it. Is this guy Kenny Kramer, who the real Kramer or the fake Kramer
Yeah,
is based on?
he
He's
was making money off of that stuff, right?
Yeah, he's got a really good uh, deal going there. So, um, and then I was self employed for a while, and I would like get jobs in Utah, Salt Lake City, and just
It's nice and random.
yeah, and I would just like I never had a visa to work for on those jobs actually for like year and a half almost, and I was paying off student loans. I was making bank on the contracting, like hourlies. Um, but I got, more and more afraid of like answering questions at the border, and somehow I escaped their scrutiny. Um, but I mean,
I wonder if it has something to do with you looking white and being tall.
oh, probably not. No.
No, no.
And then later, I kind of ended up moving to Nepal, and I was there for 4 years. That was a technology startup job, um, kind of creating different like data entry jobs for people there in Kathmandu. And
That's amazing that you actually lived in Nepal for 4 years
yeah,
after just, I don't know, growing up in Canada. I don't know. It's just black and white almost, right?
yeah, it was a huge adjustment. I mean, my family had done some of their own like volunteering trips. Like my sister is a nurse, and she did some volunteering there. Like she would go to this hospital way in the west of Nepal that served like a huge rural area. Like people would come in with like weird snake bites that had been festering for several days as they're
Oh
traveling to the
God.
hospital. And or her first day at the hospital, she had to assist with an amputation, like clamping something or whatever. Um,
No thanks.
or she had to make a colostomy bag out of a tuna can and a plastic bag.
No thanks.
So, and then I just happened to go to Nepal around the same time, and then did a few just trips, and I started learning the language on my own in Canada. Um, and I was studying Nepali for several years before I even knew anyone in Canada that was Nepali. I just knew I wanted to return on a trip and be able to talk with people. And then, but then many years later, it was like, yeah, I guess, well, 7 years later, that's when I got a job offer to move there for a startup. And uh, it and Kathmandu, it's so intense and so urban and dense, that like it's like time slowed down in kind of a good way because there's so many new experiences every day. Like just of course there's like traffic that is just very free flowing. Like the city has like 2 million people or so, and there's like 5 traffic lights in the whole thing. It's just lots of like
So how does that work? Do people just know when to go?
it's kind of like a critical mass just sort of takes over in one direction and just sort of like hogs the intersection until the other direction, perpendicular to it. It'll just kind of like nudge away, and it gradually kind of cut off the flow
Yep.
and then take over.
Yep. Did you drive over there?
So I eventually, yeah, I it took me a bit, but I got on a motor, not a mountain bike. I got a mountain bike and got used to biking around. And I just kept telling myself, like, there's no way I would drive a motorbike or car.
Hmm.
They're very narrow streets and very windy, and the streets literally don't have any names on signs or anything. Like Google Maps has some sort of name somehow, but it's like you can't like look for a sign.
There are no signs, like no signs.
Yeah, and it's just like these spider webs of kind of there's no like grid or anything. Um, and it's very organic and very narrow streets and a lot of like potholes and bumpy stuff. Um,
Are most of the streets paved?
well, so like in the last 5 years, they've done a lot of widening of roads and repaving. So that streets are paved, but it's like the contractors. There's just a lot of shenanigans with like no bid contracts, I think, and certainly some streets will get like ripped up, like the asphalt will get ripped up and just stay dust and gravel for like a year until they get around to like repaving it. So there'd just be I don't know. So you just kind of get used to like keeping all of your senses fully active as you're navigating the streets. And I told myself that I'm not going to drive anything, but I just saw that like a motorbike is so practical, and so I eventually did buy my own motorbike. It was a Honda Unicorn. It was really great. I think 100
Is
feet.
that a real thing? A Honda Unicorn?
Yeah, the Honda Unicorn.
I'll have to Google that later.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Honda Civic of motorbikes. If that makes sense. It's like it wasn't like a full on dirt bike like some people had with
Hmm.
like enormous shocks, but it wasn't like a scooter. Um,
It was a hybrid.
yeah, because like the scooters were popular with women because they could sit in them and they could keep their knees together, and be
Mm.
modest,
Yep.
right? But the scooters, they're not so great for like challenging hills and bumps and stuff. So the Honda Unicorn can tackle some decent off roading as well. And yeah, I managed to like drive around a lot and escape injury. And
Did
although
you crash ever?
I on my motorbike, I don't think I ever wiped out. On my
Did you kill
mountain,
anyone?
no, I I would say no.
Yeah, I'm sure they lived.
Yeah. um, my I mean, my mountain bike, I had these like crazy claw, like call them the pedals, for grips. And so there were a couple times when I kind of, you know, went flying over, the bars, and or had to stop suddenly, and it's just like
Right.
the pedals just kind of like gouged, like tore up my pants, and kind of gouged out some like a little bit of skin and whatever. I think I managed to switch them out eventually, um, but it's always easy to talk about like all the challenges and things, like, which I may even say more later. But I do have to paint a picture of like it's a really beautiful city. So Kathmandu, like it's in this valley, and then there's these like really big green kind of rounded but quite tall mountains, like rainforest covered mountains. And then
Mm.
there's on clear days you can see to the Himalayas to the north, and so they're like white rocky peaks and kind of like pink and orange in the sunset. And
I bet that was beautiful.
yeah, and then just in the city, like there's just random like plots of land where they're planting rice, and so like rice when it's growing in the green shoots, it's like super bright green. um and the houses are even interesting, like there's none of these like you know dull like off-white suburban taupe housing kind of
No
comp.
cookie cutter houses.
Yeah, it's like brick buildings that are often 3 to 5 stories high, and they're kind of custom built. And when you fly into Kathmandu, you look down, it looks like a whole bunch of Lego houses. They're very kind of square, but just sort of, yeah, not a grid. It's just kind of very organic looking. And some of them are like bare, like very red brick on the outside, and some of them get plastered over, and then they paint them. And um, I call it like inkjet colors because it's like cyan, magenta, yellow, purple. It's like blue. It's like they just like super intense colors on the buildings, and especially doors. Like they have this gorgeous, like super saturated blue. It's not indigo. It's not cyan. It's kind of in between. And
And would they have like a bright yellow house with a bright purple door?
mm, yeah, for sure. Yep.
Did you have to wear sunglasses a lot?
I did. There's just like it's a very dusty place. Like um there's just like there's pavement on most of the streets within the city, but the edges of the pavement, it just kind of trails off. Like
Right.
it doesn't get.
Almost like an unfinished highway type of deal.
Yeah, and so there's like a this little bit of land between like the doors of the like the shop fronts and stuff and the houses. um Between there and the street, there's like soil, and so and between the asphalt just sort of like ends, but it kind of crumbles off the edges like a cookie, and
Yeah, yeah.
um yeah, and then there's like monsoon season. Just like stuff would just fill up
I
with water.
remember I remember you telling me a story about when you tried to open up a bank account and they needed your address.
Okay,
Am
right.
I remembering that correct?
Yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, I went to the bank and I need to open a bank account. And first of all, like I had to choose a type of bank account. So on the website, they said like there's like a housewife bank account or children bank account or, and I didn't qualify for those, so I went with the default, mail um, and mail bank account. And so then
Did they treat you? Do you think in general? And I'll let you finish the story. But do you think in general they treated you different because you were a tall white dude?
oh, certainly. I mean, it was probably an even, well, maybe 75% positive, and then 25% like trying to pull something on me, like like uh um or some, or maybe I don't know, 10-15% shenanigans. I mean, taxis are the main culprits there, and shopkeepers maybe,
Hmm.
but because I would speak Thai to people, not Thai, so I would speak Nepali to people as quick as I could, except when I
So
wanted to, like,
so they would know that
yeah,
you're not one of them, but you are among them, and you know the culture.
yeah, yeah. Except sometimes, it was fun to like just listen in a social setting, and people would
Yeah.
that I could know, I could, understand if they're talking about me on the bus. I could just like surprise
What was the
them.
worst? What was the worst thing they ever said about you?
Um, I mean, they're super like Nepalis. They're so friendly and generous and welcoming,
Hmm.
um, and especially in person. Now online, I had a phase the last 7 months of my stay there. Uh, I got it. I got deep into Nepali political Twitter, and was
Oh
just,
yeah,
and so I got some support, and I got some serious opposition. Um, I won't get into all of it here, but like I get trolled by these anonymous like Nepali, seem pretty male, I would say, anonymous trolls, and
yeah.
we get called. It's funny, like one of the insults is "sale," which just means brother-in-law. But it's like, as if you use the right tone, like you can really put someone in their place. Like, hey, shut up, brother-in-law.
That's funny.
Yeah, and then another one is like jantan. So jantan means pubic hair, and this was the most popular insult for me, um, from other people on Twitter. Like they would, it's like they're trying to say like the the jabu jantan, like you puny little hair, like you're so insignificant, like you're easy to overlook.
You're just a pube.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Uh, did you use that when you were opening up the bank account? Did you use pubic hair as your middle name?
No, but maybe I could have used it for a DNA test to prove my lineage, because they're very interested in, they don't, I mean, they don't care who my mother's ancestors are, but they want to know my father's father's name.
Huh.
And I'm like, so my dad's dad, he died like in 1988. His name was Frank. Um, so I wrote that in, and I don't know if they've managed to get in touch with him or not, but for
Did they,
reference.
did
But
did they really ask you that when you were doing your bank account?
yeah, like what's my father's father's name, and
Wow. Okay.
like, and also when people like apply for jobs and stuff, they have something called biodata. So biodata is part of their CV, their curriculum vitae. Um, they would put their religion and like their just stuff like that. They'd
That's
include very
crazy.
personal details. But what they asked me for at the bank was, well, not an address, because most people don't really have addresses, and people don't get mail. Um, a few people will rent a post office box to receive mail, but there's no like general mail system in Kathmandu, and I think other places of Nepal as well. Like people don't get like a cable bill in the mail or electricity bill in the mail, stuff like that. Like just there's different ways
You
for.
just go to the physical utility store, right, to pay.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I was renting, so I just kind of paid my landlord.
Oh, okay.
Um, but so they want to establish at the bank like, where do I live? So on the form, there's this blank area with a square outline, and so the lady, pushes the paper over to me and says, "Now, please draw a map to your house." Yeah,
Did it say like north, south, east, west, so you would know which way?
that's a good point.
Because you can't just draw a box and be like, "We are here," and then you go straight, make a left, make a right, and then go up.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you can actually, you can just do that. I think that's what I did. The thing is, I just like found that place. Like I could, you know, just barely find it on foot. Um, so I just drew some scribbles, uh, and then I had to sign my signature like 5 times, um, just because they needed like 5 versions of my signature.
Did they tell you to sign it differently, or did they just say sign it?
I think they wanted maybe they wanted like natural variation.
Mm. Do you think they had supercomputers learning your signature so they could prove anytime you wrote a check,
Yeah, could be. I'm not sure.
or were they just kind of just shitting around?
There's yeah, I mean, like people, yeah, and they have reasons for stuff, and it's just I went in there and I was like, um, just trying to keep an open mind for everything, like, and there's plenty of
Yeah.
things where it's like, uh, it's different here, and um, okay, that's one way to do it, and yeah, I'll adjust.
No, every country does it different. I know even in Mexico, I mean, they make you give out your fingerprints for random things, right? And it's kind of like, why do you need my thumbprint for this? But it just is what it is, right? Different cultures, different things. Not to say there's anything wrong with it or anything. It's just things are different, and I think a lot of people lack the mind space to acknowledge that not just because we don't do it in the U.S. doesn't mean that it's wrong, or that just because we do it here, it's right.
Yeah,
There's a million different ways to do everything.
yeah, and I feel like I really enjoy being the odd person out culturally. Like I enjoyed being, say, in Nepal. I was the only non-Nepali engineer among dozens of engineers in the office.
Right.
But then in, I live in Brooklyn, and there are, yeah, plenty of Canadians around, but um, it's still a little bit of a rarity, and so I like being, a little bit exotic, like for
Right.
someone who's a German white background, kind of milk toast Canadian.
So do you feel like a complete loser now that you're back in Canada?
Oh, it's just like,
Oh man, I'm surrounded by other Canadians.
I mean, actually, it's like small talk with like a random high school person who bumps into you at the grocery store in your hometown. Like that for me is more terrifying than you know talking with a stranger in Nepali or something.
That's funny.
I feel like south like sorry, small talk, like it's like there's so many complicated rules, and it's like when I'm in a setting where I just can't ever possibly know all the ins and outs of how they would natively do it,
Mm.
but I know like a fair bit of the language, and they're very complimentary about the language and stuff, so um when I try, so um it just feels like the pressure's off, and it's just kind of like a fun discovery.
Yeah, and you definitely feel more um, enabled to learn, right? You're more in a learning mode
Right.
as opposed to just oh shit, am I doing this right?
Exactly.
No, I completely understand that. So what made you end up moving to the U.S.? Is it because Trump won the presidency?
um well, it, sort like, let's see, I moved back to Canada in spring of 2016, so yeah, that whole show was on the road in the states. Was really gearing up, and I was kind of interested in like journalism. Like at the time, I wanted to work at the New York Times and like help someone, like help a reporter with like data processing and interactive um, web experiences and stuff like that. And I applied to the New York Times that year, and then a couple of years later, and yeah, had a lot of interviews, didn't quite make it, but um, I just said I feel like okay, I want to get to New York, and there's like so much culture, and there's like as I was getting slowly more interested in comedy as well, and reading about like how comedy works and stuff, and so I wanted to kind of go to like comedy clubs and stuff, and
Hmm.
also be in the middle of protests, um, and so it took me a lot longer to get into the states. Like my visa was kind of like a year process because like I was denied at first, and then had to go through a different kind of visa. The exceptional ability thing, you have to get all these letters and stuff, saying how you were the most amazing person in the world. It's a certain narrow kind of technical thing.
Yeah.
Eventually made it, and in 2017 in the summer. So I've been in there just over 3 years, and yeah, I found like Canada compared to Kathmandu was quite bland, um, especially like suburban Canada, and I craved like more urban density and kind of like exploration and discovery. And New York
So
was
after you left Nepal and you went back home, you kind of missed that energy,
exactly, yeah,
and so then where better to go than New York City?
yep, and
And did Trump's election actually make you think twice about it at all?
um, it didn't deter me. It just felt like uncertainty about whether it would be harder to get visa approved and stuff. But
Mhm, mhm,
I wanted to be there because like right after the inauguration, January 2017, there's the Muslim countries ban and like these massive protests at the airport, and it's like I wanted to
mm,
be there. I wanted to be in the middle of those crowds
yeah.
protesting. And so finally, um, years later, there was another protest movement, in May, late May this year, and I went, in at least a dozen marches and things around Brooklyn mostly, and some in Manhattan, and yeah, it was. I wanted to, yeah, experience what that is like when people have had enough and are trying to,
Ignite
voice,
change.
yeah, ignite change and to contribute to that,
How would you describe all of those protests that you attended?
right? Yeah. So the first one was like I think the Friday night after it was like May 29th or so, and it was the first weekend after the George Floyd thing. Real, really, the tragedy just hit the news, and
Mhm,
so people just really took to the streets. And so I was in Brooklyn, uh, and this protest just kind of came down DeKalb Avenue past Fort Greene Park, and I heard them. I'm like, oh, so I want to join this. So I just ran out the door, and then yeah, it was like peaceful pretty much at first, and like just chanting slogans and stuff. But then there's like in about 1,000 people, I would estimate, there's some people that were like just wanting to like mess with things, and
burn
they
shit
would,
down.
yeah, like they would kick a car as it go by, or like push over a motorbike, or like start a fire inside one of those orange traffic things.
Yep,
It's
yep.
it seems pointless and stuff. And then so we marched east, and then um, came up to like a precinct, like NYPD thing, class and Ave, and there's kind of a standoff with the police. And at one point there was like sort of surge of people kind of ran away, and from the police. And then I was like, it's just it's. crazy feeling when it's like I would possibly be trampled, if I didn't stay on my feet. Um, and then, but that was a very quick one, and they just kind of went back, and so I realized, okay, I need to have like a plan if this happens again. So I kind of positioned myself near like things that would kind of act as a shelter, like a big concrete barrier thing, on the sidewalk that I could kind of duck behind and people would flow past me. And then I stayed like a block away from the main standoff area, but I could still hear and see things that are going on. And then it sounded like some glass broke. I think, one or two people like threw something.
Hmm.
And then police just did a big charge. And um, so, so I'm a block away, but they're chasing people. And so I ducked behind this big concrete planter thing and thought I'll just, wait it out and like see what happens as people run by. And, but then I didn't have to wait long before I realized the police are going to reach me pretty quick. And they're like just clubbing as they go and throwing people around and stuff. And at least I didn't totally freeze because I realized intuitively, like, they don't care who I am. They don't care that I was a block away this whole time. They just,
If you're in front of them at that moment, you're gonna get hit.
yeah. And it's just like, this is, you know, uh, some people trying to inflict terror on a group of people. And so it's like, okay, I got to run. I have to run or else I'm going to possibly get beat. So I ran and I had to keep running for several blocks. I didn't have to like sprint as if I'm going to die, but I had to keep up a decent pace and then and like
Right.
glance to my side and like saw like looked like five police were around this woman on the ground and they're like beating her and she's like screaming and they just like grabbing people and throwing them to the ground and stuff. And they didn't catch me, but like just kind of ran west a few blocks until it kind of dissipated. And I was just like wired, and I managed to like just talk to some people to debrief and stuff. Um,
So when the police decided to charge, was there any sort of violence or property damage being done, or
so yeah, I wasn't like right there, but I mean, okay, so that night was like really one of the wilder nights in Brooklyn. Like
Mhm.
Manhattan had like a lot more looting and rioting and fires and stuff. Brooklyn didn't have so much, but that first night, um, like back at Fort Greene Park, closer to where I live, at the same time that I was at my crowd, there's a different crowd, and they like lit a police van on fire, and it just kind of burned out. um, and so there's crazy things going on, and I'm sure police are communicating, and there's lots of uncertainty. I'm not excusing what they do, but um, from what I can tell in my situation, my area was that yeah, it sounded like someone threw glass, smashed on something. Could have been two people. It wasn't like like a flurry of projectiles or anything.
right?
Um, but it just seemed like the police decided like, okay, now this is the point where we're just gonna like chase everyone and just freak them out and rough people up. It's fun and just make everyone disperse by force. Um,
And I'm sure it doesn't help, when you're hearing reports, hey, this van was on fire, hey, there's looting in Manhattan, hey,
right,
a glass broke over here, and the police get emotional, right? They get in a different mindset of, okay, it's us versus violence, even if the people right in front of them are not being violent.
right, yeah,
It's nobody wins in that situation.
yeah, and I just felt like um, even though it's not symmetrical, like I think police have a greater responsibility to keep themselves under control because they're paid to do that. They're supposed to
Oh,
be trained to do it.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but I have never like celebrated looting, or you know, don't excuse that at all. It just seems really stupid and pointless. But um, I, I definitely see how like that, and then like another night, maybe the next night or 2 nights later, more around Atlantic Barclay Center, where there's a standoff, and I was a little bit closer, but still kind of watching from a bit of a gap. Um, it's like there's a standoff, and then both sides are kind of waiting for something to be triggered. They want, you know, a certain kind of experience. They they want the other to be attacked by the other side.
Right.
And
Right.
eventually, kind of happens. But it's just like two different occasions where I saw that kind of thing, and then I was ending about a dozen peaceful marches after that, and mostly in Brooklyn. And um, yeah, there was just a lot more chill among protesters and police, um, and different people who took it upon themselves within the crowd to like just yell like, "Don't instigate!" Like, don't even bother looking at
Mhm.
the police.
Mhm.
Just focus on what you're doing. And um, but then but the the sheer like shock and adrenaline of that first night, especially, it drove me. Yeah, I stayed up like so late that night just scouring Twitter, because like people were posting so many video clips and photos and reports. And yeah, and I just started thinking about like I want to use comedy to process this. And yeah, so it took me a month, but I made a video. um, it's called Celebrate NYPD, and it's
Also on YouTube?
it's all on YouTube. So it's my other. It's like a new YouTube channel I made. It's called That Penner Show. So That Penner Show. It's about like satire, like topical comedy, and like news and political critique is kind of the vision for it, but combined with music. So like my news desk is a piano. Yeah, and I'll bring some other instruments into it later. I think. And
The music video is top of the notch.
oh, thanks. Yeah. So I spent a month on it, and I was just learning like video production and like how to light myself to make my. It takes a lot of work to make my face look decent on video, but I figured it out.
Well, that's why what was the report, the New York Times report that Trump spent like $70,000 on hair and makeup or something like that?
Oh wow, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so I mean, look, the average human being is probably not that good looking, right? So it takes a little bit of work.
Yeah, yeah, and I was learning like how to edit video. A friend recommended I check out this alternative to Premiere. Premiere is like the Adobe kind of standard video editing software, but there's this other package called DaVinci Resolve. So DaVinci Resolve, yeah, it's cheaper. Like you just pay once, and then you kind of own it. You actually don't have to rent it forever, like Adobe stuff. And it's super powerful. Like there's actually a free version which has a ton of features as well. But you can like do After Effects style stuff. Like you can motion track, and like I spent so much time on like very short shots. Like there's I took a scene from Snow White where like the old hag, the mother-in-law or
Hmm.
stepmother, she was a witch, and she had this apple. And I like I basically rotoscoped. Like I took a NYPD cap and like motion tracked it to her head, so she was like
Yeah, people need to also YouTube this one as well, right? And
yeah,
it's called Celebrate NYPD
right.
on the
So
Robert. What is it? The Penner Show?
yeah, That Penner Show.
That Penner Show.
That Penner Show. Um,
Highly recommend.
just so there might be other Penner shows that might confuse, and I need to disambiguate. But it's That Penner Show. Um, yeah, so I just did a massive research project to like gather all these video clips of police brutality, and I focused it as just NYPD stuff, because there's all other cities that are doing it too. It's very it's all the rage. But and I like made all these notes. Like I was maybe a bit obsessive about it, but I would get like which cross streets is this video clip taking place at, and sometimes I would
Mm.
have to like hunt around like Google Street View to figure it out to compare to the video and like what is the date and what is like who's the source, the original source, who's retweeted or
So you
whatever.
put a lot of work into this.
Yeah, because I had these like like visions in my head of like maybe NYPD or someone else would kind of accuse me of like deceptive editing. Like I mean,
Right,
reality
right.
really cares, but
Some sort
uh,
of a fake news type of thing.
yeah. So I put in my video like very subtle like watermarks, just saying like the source of the person, and then um like this cross streets and the date and all that kind of stuff. And but then that actually became part of my promotion strategy on social media because I went back after I finally finished my video and published it. Um, I tracked down those Twitter people that posted their videos. And I said, "Hey, thanks for sharing this like video," and I made my own like musical comedy thing out of it. And and so it was kind of like I feel like it's like fishing, to
Did
catch
did
a
they
big
have
retweet.
did they have any reaction?
Yeah, yeah, like definitely they're like, "Oh, that's great, thank you. This is funny," or "It's good," and they and some of them would retweet or promote, my video, and like this one
Mm,
guy has like 185,000 followers, and he has this monster long thread with hundreds of video clips. He's like a lawyer who just collects like these brutality videos,
mm.
and so that was like the big fish that I caught. Like like so I ended up getting like 25,000 views on Twitter,
That's
which
amazing.
yeah, I was super happy because I didn't want it to flop, but I felt like I don't need it to be like you know income source or anything like that. I just want to get better at
Right.
the craft.
No, yeah, especially in the beginning, right? Because like we had talked about earlier, it's not easy, and you have to do it multiple times to get it to the point where you're at least decently happy with it, right? Because you're almost never completely happy with it. There's
Mm.
always room for improvement on anything that you do, but you have to get it to a point where you're comfortable with it.
Really, really proud of it, and yeah, I
Well, I hope everybody that listens to this checks it out because it's
yeah.
top notch. It really is.
Oh, thanks. Even my dad, who I was worried about, like my dad seeing it and kind of getting into an argument with me about it because he's very pro police and everything and anti hippie, even though he used to be hippie. But um, so I had to decide. Like at first, I kind of did the Facebook thing where like only certain people would see it.
Mm.
Certain people would not be certain family members, but I decided to just make it public. And then turns out like a parent's brain has this special part where it's like if their kid is getting some like attention in public for being talented and stuff, like then that supersedes the politics, I think. And so my dad, he's really proud of what I did.
That's awesome. So he's very conservative then,
Yeah,
and you are in Canada with him currently, right?
right.
So the last thing I want to talk about is, did you guys watch the debate together?
No, I self sequestered. I just like I just even though like 4 years ago we we happened to be in the same place at the same time in Canada for like the Hillary versus Trump debate. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of water under the bridge, and I've been like, I just want to like not get into an argument. Like I kind of
Hmm.
have a Trump truce. I don't know if other people have this, but the Trump truce is like I just don't talk about Trump with certain people. So I don't want to get into an argument with Canadians over American politics. Like, so I just retreated to my camper trailer here and was kind of like bouncing between different like progressive YouTubers who were, doing the live stream and like commenting on it and stuff, and then checking Twitter reactions and things.
How did you think the debate went?
I'm about as well as you could Well, I mean, American democracy has never been stronger. I'd say
Oh, I mean,
it's just
if
mask off.
any other country is debating copying our political system, they're paying attention now, and now's the time to copy it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, seriously, I felt really gross afterwards. I literally did. I just felt kind of physically sick. Um, and so it's it's like the whole shocked but not surprised thing.
Mhm.
Like Chris Wallace said today in an interview that he just couldn't see this happen. He was in shock. He was trying to like cope with what was happening in real time, but he just couldn't predict that would happen. And I feel like any rational person could think that Trump could decide to just like jump in like constantly and just try to sonically bully his way through the 90 minutes. And
And it was nonstop.
yeah, so I'm surprised they didn't have a plan B, but I think it's like, yeah, like we have a puppy on the property here, and like the puppy was just gonna like do all kinds of crazy things until you discipline it and you know like physically restrict what it can do. So like that,
That's hilarious that you're having to compare it to training a puppy.
yeah,
The president of the United States.
yeah. I felt like Biden, seemed kind of a little bit Jeb Bush low energy. That is a throwback, and I really wish Bernie Sanders could have been in that spot.
Oh my God, Bernie would have handled it so much better.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know if anybody can handle it better, but he would have definitely had the energy.
yeah. Bernie, he would have comebacks for everything. He would know things Trump is likely to say. He would know how to like get to real issues that matter. He would have a way better plan for healthcare. Like healthcare is one of those things. It's just like you got to solve healthcare, Americans. You really, and you don't have to invent a solution. You just need to humble yourselves and receive the wisdom of the rest of the modernized world. Um, that's not a Canadian humility talking, person here, but I mean, Canadians we might seem kind of polite and humble, but we are propped up by like a self satisfaction of not being Americans. It's very important part of our identity. But like, yeah, but I mean, it's funny. Like, Fox News is on in the house here and stuff, and it's like, uh, Biden, this the socialist Marxist conspiracist, is going to like take over, and
Yeah.
he's going to
Well,
like,
any Democrat gets labeled a socialist.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's just like there's conservatives in Canada, but like the spectrum is just different because it's not like our healthcare system is perfect, but like there's not people here clamoring to upgrade to a labyrinth of insurance companies that like the American has, right? So
you guys don't like filling out paperwork and then having to call because they're not covering something?
yeah, it's incomprehensible. Like, I mean, at least I have a nice job with good benefits, and but I learned this terminology like copay and like in network, out of network, and
Yeah, it's a disaster, but people for whatever reason want to keep it.
yeah, like I learned like, oh, there's only certain doctors that are going to be in network, and I switched. I worked for Vice for a while, and then I switched to more of a design agency called Work and Co. And so I switched insurance companies, so I had to like recalibrate, like what doctors am I allowed to go to? And then the shocking thing for me was that when I went to get a prescription, um, that a drugstore can be in network or out of network.
Why not? Why not?
Like,
Because
what
that
difference is
medicine, yeah, that medicine coming, it's coming from the same spot, right? But it just depends on where they're selling it.
Yeah, like in Canada, like everyone's in the same system, so you can see whatever doctor, you can go to whatever drugstore. Um, like I wasn't even used to like wait times and like scheduling an appointment to see the doctor because I had a nasty cough that had been going on for 6 weeks. Like I would have to wait a week to get an appointment for a doctor in Brooklyn, whereas in Canada, like there's all these walk-in clinics you can just go, you know, and you just don't pay anything for it. You don't have to like file a claim or whatever it is.
Well, for
Um,
that reason alone, I mean, I don't blame you if you stay in Canada a little bit longer.
well, I'm kind of in a gray area. I mean, I don't think they'll let me die, but I think my I think my benefits for my Brooklyn job, they have like travel insurance. Yeah, but I'm trying to be careful anyway.
Yeah. Well, Robert, thank you so much for making time,
No problem. It's been fun.
and I'm happy that you're healthy and you're still kicking, man. Haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, it's been great to catch up.
Again, thank you, and thank everyone for listening. And did you want to share some social media accounts or anything?
Sure. Yeah. I've got that Penner show across all the stuff, the Twitter and the Instagram and YouTube, Facebook. Um, yeah, I'm working on my next episode. I think it's going to be about Apu and Hank Azaria, who is not going to be voicing him anymore. Um,
Yeah.
just another safe topic to follow up on the police brutality.
Well, again, great talking to you. Thank you, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks, Pablo.
Thank you.